When you start ignoring her, something fascinating happens. She begins to act differently, sometimes in ways you'd never expect. But here's the shocking part. Her reaction isn't random, it's rooted in psychology. And if you understand it, you can use it to your advantage. You might think ignoring a woman is about playing games or being manipulative, but it's so much deeper than that. Women react strongly to being ignored because it triggers something primal, something they can't ignore themselves. In this video, I'll explain why ignoring her works, what she's thinking while you're distant, and how her behavior reveals exactly what you mean to her. If you're ready to unlock these secrets, keep watching. When you ignore her, something fascinating happens. Her behavior changes in ways you might not expect. And it's not just a coincidence, it's a psychological reaction rooted in how the human mind processes attention, or in this case, the lack of it. Women are emotional by nature, and when a man they're interested in suddenly pulls away, it triggers a flood of feelings that she might not even fully understand herself. At first, she might act like she doesn't care. She'll tell herself, "I don't need him," or even act indifferent to your absence. But underneath the surface, your sudden distance is already working on her subconscious. This isn't about playing games or manipulation. It's about understanding a dynamic that's been at play in relationships for centuries. The truth is, attention is power. When you're constantly giving her attention, replying to every text within seconds, liking every post she shares, or always being available, it creates predictability. And while predictability might seem like a good thing, it often works against you in romantic dynamics. Women crave excitement, mystery, and challenge. When a man becomes too predictable, she subconsciously starts taking him for granted. She knows he's always there, always ready to respond, and as a result, the spark fades. But when you step back, when you suddenly stop doing the things she's come to expect, everything changes. She begins to wonder, why isn't he texting me? Did I do something wrong? Has he lost interest? That uncertainty is what creates emotional intrigue, and it's one of the most powerful tools you can use. Ignoring her isn't about being mean or cruel. It's about creating space. Space for her to reflect on her feelings and for her to recognize what she stands to lose. People don't value what's always readily available. They value what they have to work for. And this applies even more strongly in romantic relationships. When you ignore her, you shift the power dynamic. Suddenly, you're no longer the one chasing her. You've become the one she has to figure out, the one she's trying to get back. And that shift is powerful because it taps into a fundamental human desire. We want what we can't easily have. But it's not just about pulling away and waiting for her to come running. How you handle this process is critical. If you disappear completely or act cold when she does reach out, you risk coming off as immature or petty. That's not the goal here. Instead, you're showing her that you value your time and energy. You're showing her that you won't settle for anything less than mutual effort. And that confidence, that self-respect, is what makes you so much more attractive in her eyes. As time passes, she starts to feel the void your absence creates. And here's where it gets interesting. She'll often try to rationalize what's happening. At first, she might think you're just busy or distracted. But as days go by without your usual attention, doubt creeps in. Women are natural overthinkers, and when they don't have clear answers, they fill in the blanks themselves. This is where her curiosity and emotions start working over time. She might start checking your social media more often to see if you've been active, scanning for any signs of what you're up to. Every post you don't like, every story you don't view becomes noticeable. And if you've been consistent before, this change stands out even more. This absence of attention creates a vacuum in her mind. The things you used to do for her, the good morning texts, the little compliments, the steady stream of acknowledgement, all suddenly vanish. And and it's human nature to miss what we no longer have. Even if she didn't fully appreciate those things before, she's starting to now. It's like a favorite song you've heard a million times. When it's always playing, you barely notice it anymore. But when it stops, you suddenly realize how much you enjoyed it. Your silence is that missing melody, and she begins to feel its absence deeply. And here's where the tables begin to turn. Ignoring her doesn't just make her miss you. It also forces her to question her own value in your eyes. Women often tie their self-worth to how desired they feel, especially by someone they're attracted to. When you pull back, she might start wondering, was I not enough? Is he interested in someone else? Did I do something wrong? These questions lead her down a path of introspection, where she's suddenly focused on you in a way she hasn't been before. She begins to crave your validation, not because she needs it, but because she's gotten used to it. Now, the absence of that validation makes her realize how much she wants it back. At this point, her behavior might shift in subtle ways. She might test the waters by reaching out, sending a casual text like, "Hey, how have you been?" or reacting to one of your posts. These aren't just random acts. They're her way of trying to gauge where you stand. She's fishing for a response, a sign that she still holds your attention. And how you respond in this moment is crucial. If you jump at the chance to re-engage, you risk undoing all the work you've done so far. But if you remain calm, measured, and slightly mysterious, you'll only deepen her intrigue. What you're doing here isn't about manipulating her feelings. It's about shifting the dynamic so she starts to see your value more clearly. People often don't realize how much they care about someone until they're forced to imagine life without them. And your absence creates that space for her to reflect. In this reflection, she's not just thinking about what she misses about you. She's also starting to remember why she was drawn to you in the first place. The traits that made you stand out, the confidence that attracted her initially. All of it starts to come back to her. As her thoughts begin to focus more on you, an unexpected shift happens. The roles start to reverse. While you've been pulling back, she's now leaning forward. Her mind starts replaying past interactions, analyzing every word, every look, every moment. She's questioning whether she did something wrong or if there was a subtle shift she missed. This creates a sense of urgency within her, a need to reconnect and reestablish the dynamic you once shared. And the more time passes, the more her mind amplifies the importance of what she's lost. Psychologically, this is a classic example of scarcity at work. When something feels readily available, we naturally undervalue it. But the moment it becomes rare or inaccessible, its perceived worth skyrockets. Your absence creates that scarcity, making her feel like your attention is no longer guaranteed. And when something is no longer guaranteed, it becomes desirable. She begins to associate your attention with value, and now that she doesn't have it, she's willing to work harder to regain it. You might notice this in small but telling ways. She might start liking your old photos, or replying to stories she wouldn't have acknowledged before. Maybe she brings up an inside joke you shared, or references a memory you both enjoyed. These are her attempts to reestablish the bond, but they also reflect her growing vulnerability. In her mind, she's thinking, if I don't make a move now, I might lose him completely. But here's the thing. You're not giving her the same reactions she's used to. You're no longer predictable, and that unpredictability keeps her hooked. When someone becomes too predictable, the excitement fades. But when there's a layer of mystery, it triggers curiosity. She's wondering what's going on in your mind, what you're feeling, and why you've changed. And the more questions she has about you, the more she's drawn to find answers. By ignoring her, you've subtly taken control of the narrative. You're no longer the one chasing, but the one being chased. And this shift in dynamic is powerful. It forces her to reflect not only on her feelings for you, but also on what she's willing to do to regain your attention. She might start making herself more available, trying to show you that she's still interested. Maybe she posts pictures designed to grab your attention or drops hints in conversations to let you know she's still thinking about you. This stage is where her emotions begin to override her logic. Even if she's told herself that she doesn't care or that she can move on, the reality is, she can't. Stop thinking about you. It's not just about missing you anymore. It's about proving to herself that she can still win you back. This desire for validation, combined with the uncertainty you've created, creates an emotional whirlwind that keeps her hooked. But the key here is balance. You're not ghosting her completely or playing games just for the sake of it. What you're doing is maintaining your independence, your self-respect, and your boundaries. You're showing her, without words, that you value yourself enough to step back when necessary. And that confidence, that quiet assurance, is magnetic. It's what makes her realize that you're not like everyone else. As time goes on, her emotions intensify, and the dynamic continues to shift. Now she's in a state of emotional conflict, torn between her pride and her growing desire to close the gap you've created. This is the tipping point. She might start reaching out in more direct ways, texting you late at night or suddenly reminiscing about something you did together. These aren't just random gestures, they're calculated moves driven by a subconscious need to regain control of her emotions and the connection she feels slipping away. But here's where the real magic happens. Your absence has created a vacuum in her life, and instead of filling it with something or someone else, she's filling it with thoughts of you. Every time she wonders what you're doing or who you're with, she's reinforcing her emotional attachment. And the best part? You've done none of the chasing. By pulling back, you've allowed her to experience what life feels like without you: dull, uncertain, and incomplete. This is the principle of contrast at work. Before, she may have taken your presence for granted, assuming you'd always be there, responding to her texts, showing up when she needed you. But now, your absence has highlighted just how much value you brought to her life. She's comparing the present, where she feels unsure and disconnected, to the past, where she felt secure and wanted. And guess which version she wants back? The one with you in it. Here's the critical point, though. You must maintain your composure when she starts reaching out. This is where most people fumble. The moment they sense a woman coming back, they drop all their boundaries, rush to respond, and try to pick things up where they left off. But this undoing of your progress sends the wrong message. It tells her that your behavior was a temporary act, not a reflection of your true self. And that's where the power you've gained can slip through your fingers. Instead, when she reaches out, you respond with calm confidence. You're polite, even warm, but you're not overly eager. You don't jump at the chance to make plans immediately, or drop everything just because she's showing interest. This shows her that while you're open to reconnecting, your life doesn't revolve around her. You're a man with purpose, a man who respects himself enough not to settle for anything less than mutual effort. By maintaining this energy, you allow her to prove her intentions. If she truly values what you had, she'll put in the work to rebuild it. She'll be the one initiating conversations, suggesting plans, and making an effort to show you that she's invested. And when a woman invests emotionally, she becomes even more attached. This is how you create a lasting impression, not by convincing her to stay, but by showing her that staying is her choice, her effort, and her reward. And here's the beauty of this approach. Even if she doesn't come back, you still win. Why? Because you've prioritized yourself. You've shown that your self-worth isn't tied to someone else's validation. You've developed the confidence to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you. And that's a lesson that will carry over into every aspect of your life, not just relationships. So when you ignore her, understand that you're not playing games or being petty. You're respecting yourself and setting a standard. Whether she realizes your worth or not, you've created an environment where only those who truly value you will remain. And that's the ultimate win. Remember, the goal isn't to manipulate. It's to demonstrate your value. And when she sees that value, she'll either rise to meet you or lose the opportunity entirely. Either way, you stay in control. That's the power of understanding psychology, boundaries, and the importance of knowing your worth. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more insights like this. Or better yet, watch the next video. You don't want to miss it.